Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for some more dedicated Legacy action. Today for our midweek meta spot we are playing Jesse Samak's Legacy Challenge winning 8-cast list. So, if you're not familiar with 8-cast, let me just have a quick rundown for you. So this is the heavy artifact deck of the format. So you've got a bunch of zeros here. So we're trying to play these out and play something like an Emry on turn 1. And Emry will let us play more stuff every turn, so we can use our baubles as draw engines with Emry, or we can use the Lotus Petal to accelerate out. And then we've got Thoughtcasts and Kappa Cannoneers. Sorry, not Kappa Cannoneers, Thought Monitors. These are the ones that are going to be drawing us more cards, and then we're going to drop something like a Kappa Cannoneer to finish the game with, or just expand out loads of creatures with sides to go wide, or we use our Urza Saga to go tall by making some massive constructs. The constructs don't get much bigger than they are in this deck. Whilst we have a handful of 1-drops here, we're mainly going to be playing Chalice of the Void over our 1-drops. These are just things that we can find off of Urza Saga. So our Chalice of the Void, we're going to be trying to play that off of things like Ancient Tombs, Lotus Petals, and our Mox Opals, which we should be getting online pretty early if you look at our artifact count here, as well as the fact that we have artifacts buried in our lands. To support this, we've also got Force of Will. So we've got the Force of Wills and the Chalice to sort of stop what the opponent's doing, and then we're just going to draw a bunch of cards, make a bunch of guys, and get people dead. Pretty simple. I've played this before once. I didn't play it very well, if I'm being honest with myself. It was the first time grabbing it, and there's a lot more interactions in it than you would necessarily think at first glance. So we're going to see if we can improve on that we did last time. Sideboard-wise, we have 4 Hydroblasts. So these are going to be trying to counter Meltdown, as well as a few other things, but this is mainly Meltdown food, Meltdown protection. Also pretty good against Blood Moon, which obviously shuts down our Sagas, which can be a bit of a problem, and we're a little bit light on basics here. We can cast spells off of Petals and Mox Opals underneath the Blood Moon though. We've got 2 Brazen Borrowers, sometimes we're going to need to bounce stuff. A 3rd Kappa Cannoneer for when we need to make a threat that's hard for our opponent to deal with. So if you've got a deck that's got loads of things like Swords to Plowshares and stuff like that, we can jam this Kappa Cannoneer. It's going to be very hard for them to get around. Also, this dodges Meltdown because it's so expensive. 3 Dismember because sometimes we will need to kill stuff. Our deck doesn't really do that. We can bounce with Otawara, but we're going to need Dismembers if we want to kill certain creatures. Things like Collector Roof, most notably. Then we've got a little bit of Graveyard Hate. So we've got 1 Grafdigger's Cage, 1 Soulguide Lantern. Both of these can be fetched with our Urza Saga. It's interesting to me that these are in the sideboard rather than the main, but I guess we have counter spells which are more flexible and hit more decks. But usually when I play Urza Saga decks, I tend to have a bit of Graveyard Hate in the main. But again, it seems fine. The person who's playing it has a much better idea what they're doing than I do. We've got 2 Faerie Macabres as turn 0 Graveyard interaction that also can't be counterspelled and gets round Chancellor of the Annex. Then we have 1 Karakas, which will be boarding in against some of these sort of show and tell decks and Reanimator, stuff like that. Possibly against decks like Death and Taxes if they have a Kataki in the sideboard. Now, a lot of Death and Taxes decks haven't been playing Kataki for a while, but 8-cast is now up to the 2nd most played deck in the format, so perhaps we'll be looking at some Karakases coming in. Alright, I think that's about it. Let me just say, like, comment, subscribe. These things cost you nothing and help the channel out. And if you want to spend some of your own money to help me out and say thank you, I now have a YouTube channel membership scheme that you can do. From as little as £2 a month, you can support my channel if you want to. Obviously, you don't have to, but it'd be nice if you did. Alright, it's also my birthday today. Well, the day that this goes out should be my birthday, so let's see if we can get a nice trophy for my birthday, shall we? Alright, let's play a league with Jesse Samak's Legacy Challenge winning 8-cast deck. Okay, so we're on the play here. So let's see how much mana we have on turn 1. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, including 3 artifacts. So we can crack this Thoughtcast on turn 1 because the Lotus Petals count towards the affinity of it and then you pay. So we should be able to keep this. And we have a turn 1 Thoughtcast and there's a Saga which we can hopefully start pumping some tokens out with in the relatively near future. Our opponent is mulligan to 4 now. Not sure what they're playing. Alright, let's see how we fare here. There's a Saga, Bauble, Petal, Petal. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this, we need to pay 1 and 1 blue. Let's draw some cards. Another Thoughtcast. So we can't cast this one right now. Do we want to Bauble our opponent and get a little bit more information? This will take us off Metalcraft. We already have Force of Will blue cards, so I think we keep this for the purposes of Metalcraft to cast as Thoughtcast. We're looking for like an ancient tomb, so we can... Actually, yeah, there's a Saga. Right, our opponents played a Plains and a Lotus Petal, so I think the possibility they're on some sort of stompy deck is relatively high here. Trinisphere. Do we care about Trinisphere? I think we do because you have so many zeros in our deck. Let's counter this, and I think we'll get rid of our Cannoneer here, and we just try and outdraw our opponent. Alright, they've scooped on that one. Well, they did mulligan to 4s, didn't really have a lot going on. Sideboard-wise, they showed us red off the Sim Spirit Guide, so maybe we're going to be looking at bringing these Hydroblasts. This Dismember might be useful as well if they're going to have things like Magus of the Moon. So these are the things that I'm interested in potentially. Chalice of the Void is not going to be very good against their deck. We might also want our Brazen Borrowers if they play a Chalice on 0. So that's another thing we need to consider. But there's only so many cards we can sideboard in here. Pithing Needle I don't think is going to be the most useful against like a stompy type prison deck. So I think we can probably do away with that one. The Size are going to be pretty great at spamming guys. The Kappa Cannoneer is going to be a thing that we can always use to race them if we get into a board stall. It's always going to be bigger than their things. It's always going to be unblockable in this deck at least. If we stick a Shadowspear on them, we're great. The tempo play of a Spellbomb feels very strong here. Are we going too heavily into Hydroblasts? We don't necessarily know what our opponent's playing. Maybe we'll trim back on 2 of those. And it gets a little bit trickier from there. So Mox Opal is great, but has the downside of being very bad against Meltdown, if that's a thing that happens. So maybe we're looking at trimming a Mox Opal and a Thought Monitor just because it's quite expensive. Or are we supposed to be trimming 2 Thought Monitors here? So we'll still have 6 cast effects, if you will. We'll try this. We've got Force of Will and a Saga game from turn 2. This seems fine. We can also do double Force of Will if we need to. This seems fine. Cavern, obviously not great for us. Our opponent's mulligan to 5 cards. There's a Karakas. This will be good against our Emry if we get one. A Lotus Petal, sure. So we're going to try and let our opponent commit multiple resources to play one thing. I think we'll start off with an Urza Saga. Next turn, we'll play the Ancient Tomb and start making guys, holding up 2 Force of Wills in the process. We're probably going to try and keep hold of the Kappa Cannoneer. Well, we're going to pitch one of the Borrowers first. There's going to be a Seasoned Engineer. Yeah, okay. So we'd like to counterspell this, pitching Brazen Borrower. I imagine... See, if White Plume Adventure was available, they would have been able to play it right there and then, often on turn 1 with the Sea of Traitors that was in their hand. So, White Plume Adventure ban being pretty good for us there. Alright, so we've got a guy coming, we've got a Force of Will. I think we're inclined to hold the Kappa Cannoneer rather than the Borrower here. But we'll see when we Force of Will and what information we have about what we're going to need. Here comes our Saga token. Right, we're just going to make another guy here. One of these is going to be our best bet. We could get the Shadowspear and just start racing our opponent. Or we can get the Mox Opal here and deploy a Psy. Or we could just get the preemptive Aether Spellbomb. I like the preemptive Aether Spellbomb, to be honest. Play this out. We don't have a lot of turns that we need to get through here. But if our opponent drops something like Cavern of Souls and plays a relatively scary creature, we can at least get rid of it. Swords to Plowshares, we'll allow that. That's fine. As long as we still got a creature on the board, I think we're in good shape. Because we can counterspell anything and we can bounce a creature. A more expert player of this deck might not have got the Aether Spellbomb then. But I'm not a more expert player of this deck, so... My logic was pretty sound though, I think, making sure that we can keep the board clear. Sure, so we get one thing here. They can use their Karakas to bounce this, but we're still getting another artifact, sure. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can't quite cast the Kappa Cannoneer with this. And we go to attacks. I think we'll leave the Bauble in play for the ease of casting the Kappa Cannoneer. So we could have tapped out everything here to play the Kappa Cannoneer instead of playing the Psy. But the Psy forces them to use their Karakas, or we get loads more value. Or at least in their eyes we could get loads more value. And it also means they're slightly reluctant to ever tap down this Karakas now they know we have a Psy. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can just use our mana next turn to make a Kappa Cannoneer attack for 7. And then we're going to have basically 2 lethal threats with a Force of Will hanging over our opponent and a bounce spell and another bounce spell. So I think we're in a pretty good thing. It's over to us here. So this is 6, 7. This makes 8. We can't kill them this turn. 1, 2, 3. Pay 1. Pay 1. Pay 1. So this comes in, it sees itself, so it automatically gets a counter on it. Total creatures. Faerie Macabre. Sure. So our opponent mulliganed pretty aggressively there. And we had counter spells, which is kind of what we do. We're a stompy deck in a lot of ways, but we have some really powerful interaction. All right, on to round 2. We don't really have any mana here apart from the single Lotus Petal. We do have affinity, so we could play Bauble, Bauble, Petal, play the Emry. But then where are we going after that is my kind of concern. We could go Bauble, Bauble, Urza Saga. We could use this, Urza Bauble in this. I think we should just mulligan to have some sort of permanent mana source here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, yeah, so we can do a Thoughtcast pretty sharpish here. I think we're probably going to put back the Thought Monitor. Use the Sai as our win condition from here. Opponents start with a Flooded Strands. They're probably going to be on some, well, I say some sort of control deck, but they could be getting anything off of this, really. So if we go 1, 2, 3, 4, this taps to draw us with Thoughtcast. I'm just considering if we want to play the Sagas. We can go 1, 2, 3, 4. So we have Affinity 3, 4, 5. So we could play the Saga and cast the Thoughtcast this turn. I think we want to do this just so we have more artifacts going forward. Again, someone with more reps of this deck might play this differently and play the Saga out here first. But we can draw 2 cards on turn 1. Okay, so we have an Ancient Tomb here and a Thought Monitor. So we can just play the Thought Monitor next turn if we want to. Or we can play the Sai and maybe draw into a 0-drop. We're in a bit of a weird spot where we'd like the cards to find more 0-drops for our Sai, but we'd also like them for our Thought Monitor. So we're going to have to make that decision in our opponent's end step, whether we want to try and play a Sai or a Thought Monitor on our next turn. Blue-white, Stoneforge Mystic. What are we looking for to deal with this? So this is probably going to get a Cauldron, but it could get a Shuko. They could be on the Cephalid Breakfast plan. A Cauldron, sure. So would I rather have a Sai or a Thought Monitor here? The Thought Monitor will draw us 2 cards. It's tough. It's a tough choice, actually. We can always look at our own top of our library and get some more information about whether or not we want to crack this other Bauble. An Emry. Okay. Does Emry change any things? No, we're still going to have affinity for that. So I think we will have a look at a card from our opponent's hand. Ah, we saw the Cauldron that we already knew about. So maybe we should make that decision before they get the Cauldron, but we kind of didn't know until they got the Cauldron, I guess. Right, so we're going to draw a bunch of cards. There's the Emry, there's a Mox Opal, that's a good one. Force of Will, that's a pretty nice one. A little bit late, but I'll take it. So this turn is a Sai turn, I think. Alright, so we can play a 0-drop here. Make a token. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we're slightly shy of casting this, if my math is right. Yeah, we're 1 mana shy of casting that. But we can cast an Emry here and get something going. We'll pop our graveyard out now because it's going to be one of our resources. They had a Force of Will pitching Brainstorm. Okay, that's fine. We have Thought Monitor next turn, but we are going to start taking a bit of beating from this Cauldron. So we probably need to try and get the Urza Saga going and get ourselves the Aether Spellbomb so we can bounce the Germ, but it's not looking great because obviously the Cauldron is going to trample over whatever we put in front of it. Our opponent didn't play a Karakas, which is nice there. There's a 4-turn clock though, so hopefully we can get something going before then. Ancient Tomb will change the speed of that clock though. Ponder. Right, back to us. Something like a Kappa Cannoneer can race this. An Otawara. Okay, this is one of the things we wanted. So we played this one out. So this is 3 mana. So trying to pay it without using the Ancient Tomb so that we can save ourselves some life. Make some Thopters. And there's a big construct Thopter there. An Ancient Tomb is not really where we want to be there. And play out the Saga this turn. Okay, so we don't even have Force of Will available now. So maybe we're just supposed to Otawara that turn instead. And hold up the Force of Will with Thought Monitor. Right, so we're going to take another 5 from this. I think we just take it. We're bouncing this next turn, I think. We're going to be taking a lot of damage from our own lands in the process, though. Okay. Let's draw another Mox Opal. How do we feel about this other Mox Opal? That's an interesting one. So this will cast this. So I think we are playing out one of these. So one of these makes a Saga token. Then 1, 2, 3, 4, and that bounces the other guy. And we can use the Lotus Petal if we have to counter spell instead. Would we like 1 additional Thopter this turn? Maybe. Let's send in. We don't need to send in the Sai. It can also soak up a lot of damage if needs be because it's got a booty of 4. This is whenever you cast an artifact, so we won't get a Thopter from making our Saga token. So now we have to decide if we want to use this Mox Opal now or not. How important is this one? I think we kind of want to keep up blue. in case you want a Force of Will. Although I think the Phyrexian Germ is just the thing that's scariest for us. So we'll float a blue and we'll play this Mox Opal. This one. I don't think we're going to activate the Saga right now. No, I think we're just going to pass like this. We just use this to get the... We'll treat this as a... just making a 1-1 there. We really don't want to have to cast this Force of Will. I think we'd probably die if we do that. We're going to 4 this turn. We have a Batterskull as well. A Shuko. Okay, so this is one of the reasons we didn't do the Otawara. Because we didn't want our opponent to just be able to combo us if they were breakfast. So we wanted to keep the Force of Will up or the Otawara depending on how the situation lies at the time. Okay, so equipping the Shuko there. Interesting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so we can 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so we can make a big chump blocker here if we want to. So we can either take 2 from the Sai. If we take 2 from the Sai, we have this construct. It's going to be incredibly potent in the attacking stage. I think we're supposed to block with this and take 2. And we can take another 2 from the Ancient Tomb. So we might be using the Otawara to like just get rid of a Stoneforge. Although we know our opponent has a Cephalid Illusionist in hand, so we can't really afford to do too much about that. A Ponder first. Okay, so our opponent isn't going to have Force of Will blue card. So our Force of Will should be okay here. We Force of Will the Illusionist, and we untap, we Otawara bounce the Stoneforge and kill them. Yes, we can do that. Wait, are we able to do that without dying to our own HT? We're going to need a land to do that, aren't we? Is that right? Like, we have to get rid of this Illusionist. We can't let this resolve. So it's blue, another blue, and then we take 2 here. Oh wait, we can just go get the Aether Spellbomb to bounce the Stoneforge off of our Saga. And then we have lethal here. And Nomads. Does that change anything? So we've got 2, 3, 4, 5 in the air. And then we've got 7 here. We can't tap our Ancient Tombs right now. So if we get a Shadowspear, this will become an 8-8, then a 9-9. So there'll be 9, 8, 7, 6. So it'll be 6 damage coming through. 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So that should be exactly lethal. So I think we just tap this for mana. And then we go and get ourselves the Shadowspear. We can play this one out. And we can equip this here. We go to attacks. Which is a 9-9. And it's going to deal them 6 damage. Also, if we gain some life, we can then Otawara something away. Because we're going to be gaining some life. So I think this is lethal, if I've done my maths. 2, 3, 4, 5 plus 6 is 11. Unless there's some way that they can use the Nomads. But I don't think they can redirect more damage than... Oh, they're going to redirect it to that, aren't they? Sure, this is fine. We still have the Otawara here, though. So the thing we lose to here is top-decked Cephalid Illusionist, I think. We still trample over for 6, right? We can't deal more damage to this than it has. Yeah, okay, yeah. No, that's fine. Just wasn't 100% sure of that interaction, but you can't deal a creature more damage than it has... Well, you can deal a creature more damage than it has toughness, but you don't have to deal it more damage. So we could do 1, 2, and then trample over the rest. All right. So, against the old breakfast, I think this looks like straight up blue-white breakfast rather than the ones that are the Esper builds. So, Grafdigger's Cage, Soulguard Lantern are both going to be useful here. Faerie Macabre definitely has some text. We've seen Brazen Borrower's ability to bounce their things out of play is quite useful. Kappa Cannoneer as another threat might be useful. Dismember, probably okay here. There's a lot of things we're thinking about boarding in. Pithing Needle can name Nomads and Core Shuko, so we can't really get rid of that. We need our counter spells because they're a combo deck. I think we probably are okay winning without a Kappa Cannoneer here. So I think we can get rid of the Kappa Cannoneers. Chalice of the Void is very good because they're a cantrip heavy deck, so we can shut that down. Shadowspear definitely has text. I think we can't really deal with that one. Our opponent's probably going to have some amount of way of messing with our graveyard here. So we're probably trimming an Emry. And maybe we're trimming some of the top end because we're not sure if the game's going to go that long. And we're still looking at this many cards. I don't think we can keep all of these things. I think we'll take up those 2 and then maybe... How good is the Sai here? Is it the Sai or is it the Thought Monitor that we're considering? How many blue cards have we got at this point? 1, so we've got 6... Plus we've got 10, 16. 16 blue cards is not a lot. We can't really cut any more blue cards. So we're probably trimming on baubles, right? I think knowing what card is on our opponent's hand is going to be more useful than knowing what's on top of the library sometimes. So we're going to do 1-1 rather than a 2 and a 2 split here. All right. There's definitely a possibility that I've overboarded here. There's a lot of cards to bring in for a single matchup. But we've got to win in the bank, so maybe we can learn a bit from this game. Okay, so we can make a turn 1 Emry and we have a Force of Will. Or we can make a turn 1 Sai and an Emry. That feels pretty good, right? As long as I've done my maths there. Nomads in core, sure. Not really what I want to see, if I'm being perfectly honest. A Thoughtcast. So we can play this out. Play this out. We can... I'm just thinking if we need to play around days here or not. I'm going to choose not to play around days. I think we just need to come at the game quickly here. Okay. So we'll make a 1-1. Make a 1-1. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can cast a Thoughtcast this turn instead of an Emry. I like that more, I think. Maybe dig to some powerful sideboard cards. Like this one, for example. And I think we can just... Because our opponent didn't show us black mana in the first game, I don't think we can get Thoughtseize. They have an Urza Saga coming up this turn. So I can get a Shuko, so they'll have both halves of their potential combo. So we might be trying to win off of the Faerie Macabre here. An Urza Saga. Sure. That's one we knew about. Over to us, this isn't going to attack into our 1-4. A Chalice of the Void. That's a pretty good one. We don't have any blue mana now, though, which is slightly annoying. Right, so we'll play a Saga out. We'll cast this for 1. This time we can play around days. We don't protect this with the Force of Will, I don't think, if it comes to it. Alright, so we can go to attacks here. We're very far ahead on the race, even though we are hitting ourselves in Ancient Tomb. Step through, sure. So we have a Force of Will, and we have a Faerie Macabre. Polluted Delta. Cracking this. They just got Separate Illusionist right now. Sure. We will try and Force of Will this. I imagine they have some sort of protection or another Separate Illusionist. Sure. Force of Will pitching a Force of Will. Sure. So they can't Cabal Therapy us here because of the Chalice. So they're going to mill through their whole library, and then we're just going to exile the Thassa's Oracle. And we just get a look in case there's any tech along the way. So there's a Narcomoeba, that's fine. There's the Dread Return. We want our opponent to mill their whole deck so that we can just win off of decking. They're probably a little bit suspicious about why we haven't conceded yet. Okay, just getting some Narcomoebas out, sure. And Karen going? No. Okay, they're going to play around us having something. Understood. Another Chalice of the Void. Play that one out. So 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're not attacking with our Sai here. We're just attacking with some guys. They don't have any sort of bridge from below shenanigans here. It's just these guys. So I'm going to play a second Chalice. This makes us a 1-1, and it means they can't just bounce the first one and cast a Cabal Therapy to strip this from our hand. So now we're holding up a massive Urza Saga token here, which can then get Shadowspear and rumble through. What is our opponent going to get with this? Is it going to be a Pithing Needle? If it's a Pithing Needle on Faerie Macabre, we lose. So I think we have to hit some of their things right now. I think we have to hit the Dread Return. I doubt they play multiple Dread Returns. And I don't know if there's anything else we need to worry about just yet. Just the Dread Return. Is there anything I can see there I'm particularly worried about? So I guess we'll take a Brainstorm. Alright, we are on the... Have they got another thing they can do here? They might just have the Thassa's Oracle in hand, which we can't beat. Feels like that's what's about to happen. Yeah, just a Thassa's Oracle in hand. So we could have played the Chalice on 2 to stop that line. That probably would have been a shrewder move. Alright, do we want to change anything with how we sideboard? I don't think so. Relatively happy with where we're at here, so we're just going to hit the submit button again. Looked like they boarded out their Stoneforge package, at least to an extent there. Alright, what does this hand do? Makes turn 1 Chalice into Urza Saga. Is turn 1 Chalice good enough? That's one of the better things we can do, right? And we can get a Grafdigger's Cage off of the Urza Saga pretty sharpish. Play this out. We do have to use our Lotus Petals for this, though. Play out 1 Lotus Petal. Play out a second Lotus Petal so we can play around who knows what, but it's free to play that one out, I think. This is currently 1. Can I have this Chalice? We can have the Chalice. We'll play out the Bauble. And I think we can just sit on this for Metalcraft purposes and for pumping our Urza Saga here. An Underground Sea. Okay. This is probably just a one-off to cast the Cabal Therapy in their deck. So we're probably alright there. Right, an Ancient Tomb. Not a very exciting draw there. So we'll play out the first Ancient Tomb. So this is going to be one. This is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we'll attack for 6, and then we'll attack for 12. No, it's going to be 7, isn't it? 7, and then attack for 2 more lots of 7. Yes, we don't need the Bauble for the purposes of killing our opponent with the clock here. Cephalid Illusionist on top of our opponent's library. Good to know. So they're going to need to either remove our Chalice or get an Aether Saga into play that will find them the Shuko. They can Wizard Cycle for something that can bounce a Chalice, and we know that they are a deck with Teferian, so they might just be able to dump a Teferi in our lap. Right, so we're going to make an Urza Saga token. That's 3/3. And then we're going to make another Urza Saga token. I don't think our life total is that important in this matchup. It's just a case of whether or not we can kill them before they combo off. So, what do we want here? So we could get something like a Shadowspear to increase a clock, or we could get something like the Grafdigger's Cage, or the Soulguide Lantern to stop our opponent. I think the Soulguide Lantern is probably slightly better. Let's get the Soulguide Lantern here. So we'll remove their Polluted Delta, not that it particularly matters. We'll play this out. We probably could have played out the as a Saga then, and use the Lotus Petal for blue mana. That might have been a shrewder move. Okay. How much does this cost? This costs 1, so we will try and draw some more cards. If this doesn't resolve, it does change our clock slightly. But the Thoughtcast resolved. Okay, Force of Will, pitching Brainstorm. Again, somebody more adept with this deck would probably have navigated this differently. But I feel kind of safe with Chalice and Soulguide Lantern. I have 2 layers of protection here. Maybe we're supposed to play the Saga then, and we can just start churning out more tokens. But we're going to force them into chump blocking soon. And if we can play multiple artifacts on our turn, then we're going to be good. If we can get like a 0-drop, we can cast this into the Chalice to make a token if we want to, which I think we probably do want to do. We probably should have played this Saga first in case of Daze. We haven't seen a Daze yet though. So if we cast this now, it'll be into the Chalice, but we'll get a guy out of it, so it'll grow of our constructs. So this will shut off fetch lands if they don't block here, which could shut off like Teferi lines and things. Sure. Okay, so the second game, I think we could have won if we'd have played the Chalice for 2, but we just got the third one anyway. So we are 2-0 going into round 3. All right, we've made it into round 3 now, and we are on the draw. What does our hand do? It's pretty close to making a turn 1 side, but it doesn't really go anywhere after that. But we can play a pretty serviceable as a Saga game with Force of Will backup. So I think this is a keep. I think our opponent might be the trophy leader in the league right now, if I remember rightly. They're certainly up there. An Underground Sea. A Shuko. Okay, so we're on another Cephalid Breakfast matchup here. So we can play a Saga out here. We can play the Sai, but we lose to not having a blue card if we do that. So I don't think that's where we want to be here. So I think we're going to play out our Petal, play out our Bauble. We're going to use this to draw in case we can find a little bit more interaction with our opponent. A Daze. That's important to note. Okay. Unfortunately, that has cut us off of Metalcraft, doesn't it? So we don't have the ability to pay for 3 dazes. We can only pay for 1 daze, for 2 dazes, right? We should be fine. Showing off Metalcraft there was probably not optimal. But I think, okay, yes, we got another thing for Metalcraft on our turn anyway, so we should be fine. Our deck is pretty dense in artifacts. A Brainstorm, sure. Is our opponent on the Esper build, or are they on just the blue-white splashing black? Because this might just be to cast the single Cabal Therapy, or it might be for things like Baleful Strix. And Otawara. Okay. We'll play out a basic island. I think the quickest way we close this game is by making Urza Saga tokens. So if we want to Bauble to draw another card, we have to do it now rather than with our Urza Saga. This is going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that's going to be lethal if we play 1 more artifact. So I think we don't pop these just yet. We have 1 piece of interaction. We need another card to go with a Force of Will to have another piece of interaction. We do have Otawara as an option as well. There's a Brainstorm from our opponent. That's okay for us. We have this Daze we have to watch out for as well. Fortunately, our Urza Saga just comes under that. There's a Flooded Strand. We're seeing a Cephalid Illusionist this turn. We have 1 play here, and this is it. They have 4 cards in hand. We know one of them is a Daze, so they definitely have a blue card to go with their Force of Will. They're paying 1 life here, so it feels like we're in trouble. So this is the Force of Will targeting our Force of Will. And what do they pitch? The days that we knew about. Okay. So, I think with this on the stack, we're supposed to bounce the Shuko. Or we can... Actually, because the Shuko... This is sorcery speed. So they can equip it once and then we can bounce it. So we bounce this. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we can go and get the Pithing Needle for Shuko next turn. We should have popped the Bauble first. Although, I guess we kind of want our Metalcraft here, don't we? Alright, it's just normal looking stuff in the sideboard right now. So we'll float the 1 here. We have a choice. We can get the Pithing Needle for the Shuko. I don't think we have a better choice here. We don't have any main deck graveyard hate here, do we? So I think it's Pithing Needle and we name Shuko. Unfortunately, we don't have anything going on right now. So we definitely have to have a look at their hand. We're probably going to see one of the cards we know about. A Force of Will. Okay. I think we're better off holding this Otawara than playing it. Our Urza Saga had to be used in an emergency fashion. So we didn't get any chance to make guys with it. We're using it for mana. And Nomads. Yep, this is us dead. We'll let them mill it just so we can see their deck, but this is game over for us. So have Illusionist, so they're milling a bunch of cards. And we can't interact right now, so we are just on the F6 here. I just want to see their deck and see what they have. It looks like the same build as the previous round. Makes sense. Deck's very good, but I think there are several ways you can build this deck and it's all very good. Not seeing any of the Stoneforge Mystic plan yet. This might just be more of a turbo build. We'll see when we get to see the whole deck. So we've got 2 Teferis. They are on Baleful Strixes, so they're not going to be Stoneforge. They're on Baleful Strix instead, so they are heavier into the black. Alright. Keep going, opponent. Let's see what you've got. Other Nomads. There's the one Thassa's Oracle. And that's it. Okay, sure. I've seen their deck now. We can concede. So we're going to go to sideboarding. So last time we boarded in these cards and these cards. If I remember rightly, we boarded out Kappa Cannoneers and we boarded out a couple of Thought Monitors and a couple of Baubles. That still leaves us 1 shy, so there's probably something else we cut out here. Are we in need of Shadowspear in this matchup? Probably not. We do hurt ourselves a lot. We haven't seen any sort of sideboard plan from them. Maybe we just brought out Shadowspear here. Well, I do like Shadowspear. It's just a way of actually being able to punch through and win the game when they have all their little guys gumming up the works for a few turns. Maybe we'll trim a single Emry here. Like, Emry's obviously not very good with Grafdigger's Cage, as well as the fact that they're probably a Karakas in their 75, as well as possible graveyard hate coming in from our opponent to stop our Emry anyway. Alright, let's see how we go here. Okay, this is good. We can keep this. We have turn 1 Chalice for 1 with Force of Will backup into a second Chalice if we need it. So we can do Chalice on 1 and Chalice on 2 and just try and win the game with things like Thoughtcast. So this is a Chalice for 1 and it sticks. Excellent. So next turn we can play out some artifacts and Thoughtcast. We would very much like to draw a blue card just so we're covered here, but we'll see. Faerie Macabre, nice to see a good sideboard card there. We'll play out this artifact land. We'll play out this Mox Opal, which is live. Interesting they're pausing on this one. I guess it is with Metalcraft. So maybe that's why they're pausing, because they might be thinking about disrupting us. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we can cast this. I think we'll use this and 1 blue mana here, just in case we need blue mana for something else in a second. We would like to draw a blue card here. This is a little bit risky, so we did draw the blue card. So we can deploy a second Chalice here, but I don't think that's worth doing. I think we're probably going to go for a Chalice on 2 for next turn. Maybe back that up with a Force of Will if we need to. I think our opponent's going to struggle to win the game from that point. They do have Teferis though. Kataki War's Wage. I would not like this to resolve. I'm going to cast a Force of Will on this. Alright. We don't have anything going on here. We just have a bunch of things. Maybe we're supposed to cast a Chalice there, but if our opponent's got some like big haymakers like Kataki, we don't want to just lead a Chalice into a second Kataki. They didn't fight over that Kataki landing or anything, even though it would be absolutely backbreaking for us. So that makes me think they either have a really strong follow-up, like another one, or, let's see, just a Baleful Strix. Okay, that's fine. We do have 2 Faerie Macabre though, so if we can keep this Chalice in play, our opponent's going to struggle to Cabal Therapy us, and maybe we can get them with the trick here. Are we supposed to play this Chalice on 2? Let's see what's in our opponent's hand and see if that gives us any indication of the correct way of deploying this turn. Okay, maybe we'll play this turn. 1, 2, 3. Let's leave our island up actually. Let's try a Chalice for 2. So we're shutting down most of the stuff in their deck. Again, they do have Teferi, so they can bounce one and then tick it up a few times and bounce the other. Gives us a window to replay them though, but they could bounce one and do some other stuff. All right. We have some number of turns before this Baleful Strix kills us. But how many artifacts we got? 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can play this Thought Monitor, and that'll shut off the Baleful Strix as a good attacker. We can just trade it off because our flyer draws 2 cards. Right, this is good. How much does this one cost? 1 and 1. So I think we will use this mana to play a 2 mana 2/2 that draws 2 cards. Pretty good. Let's bring a little one on the stack here. Let's see. Okay, so kind of wish you didn't play that land out. It did make our guy cheaper, but we had some other options that might have been better here. Again, that's a little bit of inexperience with the deck. I think we will have a look at our opponent's hand here. A Baleful Strix, sure. I think we trade off this Thought Monitor. Sure, the Emry's pretty good here. Allows us to just draw an extra card every turn. Now, this Urza Saga might just go and get a Pithing Needle if we play the Emry, but that's not the end of the world. We will accept this trade. That's one of the ways this game can run away from us, so I'd rather avoid that if possible. So we'll play out an Urza Saga. This will make our opponent consider whether or not they're supposed to get a Pithing Needle and name our Urza Saga or name our Emry, which we're about to cast. Let's pop our graveyard out now, since that's going to be a zone that we can interact with. Lotus Petals, more Chalices, good stuff. We could play a second Emry just to mill ourselves if we want to, but I don't think that's worth doing. I think we'll hold it because it's a blue card for force down the road, and if this gets killed somehow, we do something about it. Sure, so they're going to get a construct. Our constructs are going to be significantly bigger than our opponents. They can put in a Shuko underneath the Chalice from the Urza Saga. Sure. But okay, they've just conceded here. I think maybe they looked at their deck, just check if they had a card, and they didn't have the card, so they conceded maybe. All right, so we're going to the third game. I liked how I sideboarded there. Am I contemplating playing Karakas for their Kataki? That is a real consideration I should think about. What would it replace in our mana base if we did that? I think the Otawara has some really important text here. We can't remove any of our blue sources. I think it would have to replace a spell if we boarded in this Karakas. That's tough. That's a tough call if we board in that Karakas or not. So we've got 3 Dismembers and 4 Force of Wills. I think we do not board in the Karakas. Maybe that's wrong. I don't know, but it just feels like we've already got a lot of cards in for this matchup. Boarding in another one might be overboarding somewhat. So we have a Dismember. That beats the Kataki. We have a Chalice of the Void. We have a Force of Will. We are in an okay spot here. Tundra from our opponent into Ponder or Nomads. Nomads. All right. So now we don't really want to play out our Chalice right now. I think we are on playing the Otawara here. Because this way we can Dismember if our Force of Will on their turn 2 Cephalid doesn't work. Then we're going to have to find a way to win this game. The reason we play this out, we might as well save 2 life. We're going to need blue mana at some point. Feels like our opponent might just be going for it this turn. Sure. So let's try and counterspell this. Force of Will, pitching. What are they going to pitch for this? A Brainstorm, sure. So we will kill this Nomads in response. We don't get a chance to do the Cephalid Illusionist because the Nomads in core works instant speed, so they can just rinse it through. Alright, they just had turn 2 combo with 2 layers of protection. Maybe we can bluff them into thinking we have the Faerie Macabre. They didn't see it in the previous game, unfortunately, which would be useful for us now. Let's see if they do it or not. If they give us a chance where they pass, we might be able to win the game still. We'll see if they go for it or not. I imagine they're probably going for it here. They can Cabal Therapy us first, which is what they're probably going to do right now. Yeah, okay, that's us done. Right, yeah. I feel that matchup is pretty okay for us, but our opponent had basically the nuts. They had the turn 2 with... We had 2 pieces of disruption, they had 2 pieces of protection, and the turn 2 combo. So that's like a top 5% hand they had there. So, yeah, fair enough. I think we do win that game if we had a Faerie Macabre there, because the Thassa's Oracle has come out before the Cabal Therapy, but c'est la vie. Let's go on to round 4. We are on the play for round 4. We have a turn 1 Chalice into turn 2 Sai and a bunch of stuff. That seems fine to me. We'll keep this. Our opponent might also not know what we are if we play out the Ancient Tomb on turn 1. Oh, wowzers. Okay. If If our opponent's mulliganing this aggressively, I'm inclined to play out this Bauble and see if I can get some information about their hand first. So if we play out the Ancient Tomb and this, we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4. So we could cast a Thoughtcast. But I think we need to see what's in our opponent's hand because we might be Chalice of the Voiding for 0 here. Delver of Secrets. Sure. That's just a bad hand from our opponent then, I guess. So this has to take a Force of Will. Okay. Excellent. We're not going to play out this Lotus Petal here. I think it's worth it. If we see like a Storm card on top of their library, then I think we are inclined to wasteland when you've already mulliganed that aggressively. Okay. That's fine by me. I think we just play out this Island and say go. Yeah, so if we see like a Storm card there, we probably have to play the Chalice for 0 and just shut off all the Storm mana. But if we saw a Brainstorm, then we kind of don't really know what we're doing then, and that's not a great situation for us. So we have a choice here. We can play the Sigh around a Daze, or we can try and get a 1-1. What is more important to us here? I don't think we want to let our opponent back in this game, so I'm going to play around a Daze. Okay, our opponent's conceded from the game there. Good. All right, so game 2 against what looked like Blue-Red Delver. So Hydroblast are in to counter meltdowns. That seems like a given. Which does mean that our chalices are kind of a bit of an awkward one. So that's worth thinking about. I don't hate the Soul Guide Lanterns here either. I think Kappa Cannoneer is very good against meltdown because it just is bigger than what they're doing. So I think this is kind of where we're looking at. Maybe resolving things like Thought Monitor might be a little bit tricky. So there's a lot of cards we're boarding in. Is it more important to have the Chalice or the Hydroblast here? The Aether Spellbomb I like. Pithing Needle on Wasteland I like. Shadowspear to race stuff. So I like these things. Flying chump blockers feels very good. Emry is probably going to be a little bit less useful post-board. I don't know if this is a Force of Will matchup, right? The only thing we want a Force of Will is Meltdown. That's kind of what we want to deal with. So if we board out the Force of Wills, that makes it quite a clean cut. Again, we do have this tension between our Chalice of the Void and Hydroblast. But if we can Chalice of the Void early, that's just going to be very good. So definitely a bit of tension there. What does this hand do? This makes a turn 1 Emry. I think that's keepable. There's a Volcanic Island into Ponder. So no threat on turn 1, which is very good for us. Over to us. An Urza Saga. Unfortunately, we don't have time for that one right now. So let's cast this for 1 mana. This gets in. Pop our graveyard out there. So we have a Lotus Petal we can use next turn. Are we looking to use these as baubles? I don't think so. We can use them as affinity. We have 2 affinity cards in hand, so we'd much rather have them as additional mana sources effectively. Like these might be able to effectively tap for 2 mana each on our next turn if we can chain a bunch of spells. A Lightning Bolt on our Emry. Sure. We got a threat to follow that up with. It's not a Dragon's Rage Channeler because you cast that first. A Delver of Secrets. Sure. Otawara. So we're not casting that anytime soon. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can't actually cast this because it costs us 3 mana. We can't cast the Thought Monitor either. And we can't cast the Sigh. So I think we're probably looking at drawing some cards. Oh, it's so awkward though. Like next turn we can do these things. We're in a real bind with the baubles here. I think we have to pass the turn. See what our opponent has on top of their library. They did not reveal it. Interesting. So there's the Saga on this. The Wasteland on our as a Saga. That's pretty good. I think we do just need to start drawing some cards here. A Pyroblast. Okay, that's important to know about. There's a Mishra's Bauble. Yeah, I do think we have to just burn these. I don't like it. Okay, so it's probably 2 of the same Pyroblast. Could be 2 Pyroblasts. That'd be pretty good. A Lotus Petal. Chalice of the Void. Oh, and an Urza Saga. Play an Urza Saga. Play a Lotus Petal so we can play around Days. I'm going to try and drop this. Chalice for 1. That will shut off the Pyroblasts and mean that we can resolve our big draw spells. Force of Will pitching Days. So our opponent's got 1 card in hand and we know what it is. Next turn we can make a Lotus Petal. What's it called? And there's a Saga token. It'll cost us our Lotus Petal unless we want to sacrifice our Otawara. But I don't really want to sacrifice Otawara because we might need another blue source down the line that isn't meltdownable, especially if we get wastelanded. Okay, so there's a Lightning Bolt on top of our opponent's library. So let's flip their Insectile Aberration. Now they have a 3/3 Channeler. We are behind. And we can't get this Sigh into play because of the Pyroblast, so we're going to have to try and bait the Pyroblast out with something else unless we can draw a second Sigh. Wand. I think if we make a token, how big is it going to be? It's going to be a 3/3 token. So they're going to bolt it. And then they bolt the second token. And then... no, sorry, they can't bolt the second token, can they? So we take 6 next turn down to 10. Then we take another 6. Then we hit them for a bit of life gain. And maybe that's okay. That doesn't feel spectacular. But again, we can't play this Sai out. We've only got 2 artifacts. I think we need to just make some Urza Saga tokens here. So we kind of have to use Otawara to make the Saga token this turn if we want to make one next turn. Which is not a great play. But I think this is our route to victory here. We're trying to Shadowspear our way out of this one. Which is probably getting lightning bolted. And that's fine. But it means we have the Lotus Petal to crack this one because we don't get to play a land before the Urza Saga pops. Yeah, it's going out our construct rather than our face. That's fine. Yeah, all these Hydroblasts in our deck would be pretty nice in this situation. A Ponder, sure. A Ponder resolves. A Wasteland. This is very bad news for us. This probably spells the end of the game. Just trying to think. How do we get out of this? I don't know. Which isn't a great place to be, is it? I think we need to crack this. But I guess we could draw a double Hydroblast and get rid of Channeler through the Pyroblast. Again, not great. We are very much under the gun here. An Urza Saga. This is too little too late, I think. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is going to cost us 2. 3 mana. So this is going to get counterspelled with the Pyroblast. Yeah. So our plan is, next turn, to draw some artifacts. So to draw an artifact that we can cast with Sai in play, so we at least have a chump blocker, and then just try and do that every turn until we can not die. So we're going to go to 4 this turn, which is importantly outside of Lightning Bolt range. A Delver of Secrets. Okay. Our opponent's got a lot of guys here. We can get something like an Aether Spellbomb off our Saga in a couple of turns to buy us a bit more time. But we need to draw a 0 mana artifact off of the Sai here. For the Sai here. A Thought Monitor. So we are just dead on board, right? Yeah, we're dead on board. We'll scoop that one up and we'll go to game 3. I think our sideboarding is fine. I don't think this is a match where we want things like Dismember. I think we're just going to roll as is. I do quite like a Soul Guide Lantern here, though. Just as a thing to say no to some of their bits and pieces. So we take that over one of the Baubles. Just try and dump a Kappa Cannoneer in their lap and win the game that way. Haven't really got to do a Kappa Cannoneer thing yet, so it's about time. We're on the play. Let's see. We have a turn 2 Sai. That's fine. We do have to fade a Wasteland on turn 1, though. We're not going to play our blue source out because we're going to need that for a bunch of spells. Let's see if they Wasteland us turn 1 or not. They kept a full grip, so they might do. They did not Wasteland us. Okay, this is a good start. They could daze us here, though. That's definitely an issue. An Aether Spellbomb. Let's try the Sai. If this doesn't work, we can do it again next turn. Okay, we're just in. Okay, so we get a 1/1. And I think we just want to be drawing more 0 drops here. So we're just drawing cards. Preordain. Oh, it is Preordain very often, but I guess maybe some people are trying more cantrips now that Expressive Filtration is gone. It's also a sorcery to help for Delirium. So that kind of makes some sense. They're seeing the card we're about to draw. We might also draw a Force of Will. Oh, no, sorry, we can't draw a Force of Will because we boarded them out, yeah. So maybe we're supposed to do that in our opponent's turn. I don't know. Right, a 0 drop artifact, that's what we wanted to draw. We take the 3 this time because next time we can put multiple Thopters underneath it. A Meltdown here is pretty bad for us. It will lose us these 2 permanents. We do get to sort of rebuy a little bit because we have another Bauble here and we can play the Spellbomb and crack it to draw a card as well if we want. So we're not completely dead if they do that, but we won't have any blue mana until we draw more, which is obviously an issue for us. But if we can just play a load of artifacts with the Sai in play, then I think we'll be in good shape to win this game. It's just trying to dodge the Meltdown there, but hopefully, because we're getting 2 artifacts every time we play an artifact. Okay, so what are we going to lose here? We're going to lose the blue source or the tomb. This is an interesting choice for our opponent here. Okay, they got rid of the tomb. That's probably the one that I care about least. Well, that means they're more likely to have a Meltdown because you would keep that one around if you're going to melt it down. Hydroblast. This is a good draw for us. We'll play this out. We can't afford to let our Hydroblast down, so I think we just have to attack here. How many artifacts do we actually have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can't cast a Thought Monitor here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah. So there's no Thought Monitor available to us. Do they? I'm just trying to think what they saw. They saw the Bauble with when they cracked their Bauble, I think. Let's see what they got on top. The Delver of Secrets. So we do have the option of just playing the Spellbomb and just getting another guaranteed creature. But Meltdown will win the game against us if they cast it. So I think we do have to keep this blue mana up. Okay, and Mox, that's very good. That represents both mana and a creature. Delver of Secrets we knew about, sure. Have they got a follow-up land, or are they on one land here? They have a wasteland. That's not great for us. Puts us in a similar position with our Mox Opal as we're in with the Sealer Synod. Maybe we're supposed to block there as well. I think I skipped that one too quickly, I'm afraid. So, we're going to play out this Mox Opal. That's step 1. Are we still playing around Meltdown or not? Are we playing around Meltdown or not? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we have to play around the Meltdown, right? As awkward as this is. Maybe we should have attacked the side then, actually. Okay. This not flipping is interesting. This probably means a land. A Brainstorm. We knew the Brainstorm was coming. Interesting they didn't want to do this in their upkeep. Just to make sure they flip the Delver. Oh wow, they've just conceded from the game. They don't think they Brainstorm locked themselves and they don't think they can beat the Sai. Alright, I'll take that win. So we are 3-1 already with only 1 round left to go. Let's jump right into it. Right, we're on the play for the final round. Not a bad spot for us to be in. We have turn 1 Chalice with Force of Will backup into an Urza Saga game. I think it probably is worth playing the Chalice out rather than getting the Urza Saga going. Could be wrong on that one. But because we have a bit of defense going on, I think we should just play a slightly more defensive game and then build up to just casting things like Thought Monitor and getting the game won that way. Doesn't feel like we're going to have to be super explosive necessarily if we've got a Chalice and a Force of Will keeping us cozy. Going to need some more artifacts. This Pithing Needle not being castable is a bit... Well, we can cast it, but we can't do anything unless we're getting a side token out of it. Alright, so we just lost our land. Cool. A little bit awkward, but we can live with that one. Let's see what's next. Okay, so we have an Urza Saga and a Mox Opal. I don't think we cast the Mox Opal here because we don't have any artifacts to power it out, and we may be able to play a Sai in the near future, and we want to keep it available as a thing we can do with Sai and get some tokens out of it. Hopefully we can draw, like see at the Synod next turn would be great, because that means we can activate our Urza Saga off the Mox Opal and just win the game that way. Okay, another Wasteland. I guess we should have started the game out with Pithing Needle on Wasteland. Understood, opponent. Understood. Okay, so we did draw the Sea of the Synod I wanted, but it doesn't really help us in the way we... Actually, let's have a think about this. We've got 1, 2, 3 mana here, 4, 5. So we can't cast this. This costs 4 mana. We only have 2. We can't cast this. We can play our Pithing Needle straight into a Chalice of Void, but I don't think that's going to help us out. So I'm just going to pass the turn to our opponent's turn. An Urza Saga. Sure. Our opponent is a Wasteland Urza Saga deck. Mox Diamond. Okay, so they're more in the lands spectrum of things. Yeah, okay, so a Tiger going away there. Sure. So we need to find something here. Chalice is not really the something we were looking for. We can play another Chalice on 1. This will give us the ability to cast a Thought Monitor in the near future. I think that's probably where we want to be. Just doubling up on these. So we just need 1 more mana source now to cast the Thought Monitor. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, yeah. So 1 more mana source, we get the Thought Monitor, and we can hopefully start putting this game away. Now, the Urza Saga ticking down on our opponent's side of the battlefield doesn't fill me with a great amount of joy. An Otawara, so that is a mana source. We can play that mana source. 1, 2, 3. Let's go and draw some cards. Force of Wills might not be the most useful right now. Okay, so next time we can play a Sai and draw some cards, but that will take down our Force of Will shields unless we draw a blue card. So this is just going to be an Urza Saga into another Urza Saga token with something coming out the back end of it. What is coming out the back end of it, I do not know. It could be a Shadowspear and they're just going to try and tool up and race us. And we can't put this Aether Spellbomb into play because they're in Chalice. Having 2 of the cards in our hand locked up by Chalice is quite unusual. And it's certainly causing us a little bit of trouble. Oh, it looks like they're floating mana off of their thing. Okay. They're just trying to get the Shadowspear up running this turn. Oh, a Dark Depths as well. Okay. Understood, opponent. Understood. Now we can chop block this for a little while, but they have a Shadowspear, so not for that long. Yeah, we're kind of losing this game to our own Chalice, weirdly. That's unusual, but it's the situation we're in. I'd quite like to see more of our opponent's deck before we concede, if possible. See how far along the spectrum of like lands to 8 mulch they are. And Urza Saga, what does that do for us? How many tokens can we make? We can play out the Sai, then we can play out 2 artifacts, but that's going to cost us 2 life. We can play out 1 artifact, and we have 3 damage to block with. No, we're just dead to our own Chalice here. I don't think we're beating this. I don't think there's anything I'm missing here. We don't have the mana to play Sai and sack both our Chalices either, to then play our Spellbomb. Yep, I think we're done there. All right, so how do we want to approach this one? Karakas feels good here. I think the Brazen Borrowers are going to be useful here. Kappa Cannoneer is something they can't Maze of Ith very easily, so I like that one. I don't mind a Soul-Guide Lantern either. Pithing Needle seems good, Aether Spellbomb seems good, Shadowspear seems good. Is it the Chalices are cutting? That'd be so weird, but maybe. Like, we need our 1-drops a little bit here, but Chalice does stop a bunch of our opponent's things. But maybe we're just better fighting on a different axis. Or are we cutting Force of Wills? Because there's not that many spells we want to counter. Okay, maybe we've cut an Emry because our opponent's probably going to have a lot of ways of messing with our graveyard. So I have 1 less of those. Sure. Hopefully we won't get locked under our Chalice again. Again, let me reiterate, I am not an expert with this deck. I am just doing what feels right and trying to justify it as I go along. So I appreciate people in the comments telling me how I should be doing it. Alright, what do I think about our opener? Double Mox Opal, not ideal. So what we got here? So we got Saga into Lantern, Opal. Then what? We didn't really go anywhere there. 1, 2, 3, 4. We can't even get Metalcraft. I do think we have to mulligan this one. Yeah, this seems good. We can keep this. I don't think we need 2 Thought Monitors here. So we can play out a Sai and make a token on turn 1. That seems alright. If we can find like another Lotus Petal next turn, we might just be able to put a Kappa Cannoneer into play. And that should be enough to win the game most of the time. Now, our opponent's going to have some pretty strong anti-artifact cards in their deck. Things like Force of Vigor. Unlikely to be Meltdown, but possible. So we're going to lose our Ancient Tomb. We're just going to play this old chestnut. But this time, we actually have stuff on the board. Thoughtcast. 1, 2. So we've got 1, 2, 3 mana. So that's not enough. Okay. Our very small clock is slowly ticking away there. Oh wow, our opponent's going to clean up. Interesting. Maybe that was a misclick. I can't imagine a lands deck not making a land drop. Certainly no, I've misclicked enough. Yeah, there's a misclick from our opponent. Alright. It doesn't matter because we don't have a card that does anything. Some baubles and things would be nice. So we can, you know, get some draws and re-up with our guy here. Yavimaya. Okay. So we can tap our Ancient Tombs without taking damage. That's the thing that we need to do. Exploration is pretty good for our opponent. This means they can make a Marit Lage token next turn if they have the correct number of lands. We really need to hit this turn. A Bauble. That's kind of a hit. So we can almost make a Kappa Cannoneer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we can cast a Thoughtcast this turn. See if we can get any purchase into this game with it. A Soul-Guide Lantern. That doesn't do anything here, does it? I think we are probably looking to just draw some more cards here. Force of Vigor. Yikes. Not a big fan of that being on top of our opponent's library. I guess the only thing that can blow up right now is the 2 Thopter tokens. Sorry, it was on top of their library. It's in their hand already. See the Synod though. That's a very good one for them to blow up with it. Alright, opponents played a land out. Excuse me, just had a little cough there. They can hard cast a Force of Vigor as well. Could be looking at trying to cast an Endurance. That's certainly a thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we aren't looking at enough here to justify those things. I think we probably play out the Soul-Guide Lantern pre-combat. Just in case something happens to our Sai in combat. It's possible, but unlikely. I think at this point I'm slightly more worried about the Maze of Ith and the Wasteland. Just trying to get them with our rubbish little guys. If this is a crop rotation for Merit Lage, we lose. Well, we don't lose the game because we've got the Thopter family, but this will go and get them the. It's okay. Just going to lightning bolt the Sai. Okay. Is this going to be 2 lightning bolts, or are they just going to make an Urza Saga construct to trade here? It's not the end of the world for us. We will lose our Sai here, but it's given us 3 artifacts which we're going to use to cast a Kappa Cannoneer very soon. They can Force of Vigor this Kappa Cannoneer if they have the 4 mana up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have to take a turn off attacking, but it does give us a massive guy. It does give them a good Force of Vigor target though. But it means they have to pitch, cast Force of Vigor, and have 4 mana open in order to do it. Now, are we supposed to do the Soul Guide Lantern in response? That's a good question, because they could get a Pithing Needle here. I don't think we do, because this is also casting our creature next turn. So I think we leave the Soul Guide Lantern. Okay, it's just an expedition map. That's not too bad. Tabernacle could be. Tabernacle's pretty good here, truth be told. It's going to really mess with our Kappa Cannoneer plan. And there's a Saga. Okay. That's certainly better for us than the Tabernacle would have been. So they can't Force of Vigor our guy this turn. So play out this. And we're going to cast this Kappa Cannoneer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this should kill our opponent next turn, or possibly 2 turns time, because you've got the other 3 damage here, but they can't kill this turn. But next turn we can play this Thought Monitor and hopefully draw into some more artifacts and endurance. They're probably going to target us since we're an Emry deck. Yep, that's fine. This can eat up our little tokens. We can push 2 damage. So we're just trying to cast a bunch of artifacts and then kill our opponent with a Cannoneer. So our opponent can't Urza Saga and Force of Vigor this Cannoneer. They need to hold up all their mana to pay for the ward cost as well as pitch cast. There's the Dark Depths. Okay, so we're going to be keeping open our Brazen Borrower. Now, the only issue with that is one of our sources to do so is an artifact. So, again, not ideal. And this Urza Saga is going to get them the Shadowspear to overrun us. So our little guys aren't going to be enough. If they're Force of Vigoring this turn, that's not so terrible for us. Force of Vigor, pitching these 2, pitching and a second Force of Vigor. So we can't bounce our own guy because that's not how that works. We can float a mana here if we want to, but is it going to do anything? We can bounce nothing of use here. Sure, we'll let them pay for the ward. This means they're not making a 20/20 this turn. So we can have a turn where we try and draw a bunch of cards, hopefully. I guess we'll float. We're not cracking this because this counts as a mana right now. Another Kappa Cannoneer. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's not actually enough to do anything. We're just getting horribly mana screwed this game, really. We've only been hit by 1 wasteland this time, so I'm a little bit annoyed about that one. So if I'm right, this is 3 mana. Yeah, so that's way below what we got. We are 1 mana shy of the Cannoneer. So I guess we are on cast this Emry. Have a little look-see at what's going on in our graveyard. So we've got a Kappa Cannoneer in there and another Kappa Cannoneer in there. A Chalice. That's not actually very good hits for us, truth be told. I don't really always want to send these guys in. These are hopefully going to block up some amount of big guys along the way and buy us some time to maybe Brazen Borrower our opponent out. This could get a Pithing Needle to name Emry. It could get another expedition map to get them the Thespian Stage to make Dark Depths. It could get the Shadowspear so that they can do some aggroing on us with what they've got on board, as well as make sure their Dark Depths can swing through our little Thopters. So we've got a lot to try and beat here. Sure, Pithing Needle on Emry it is. Could be on Soul Guide Lantern if they've got a Life from the Loam here. Emry, sure. I don't think we can pop the Soul Guide Lantern there because we need it to cast the Kappa Cannoneer, which is our most direct route to victory here. We're looking for a mana source or an artifact. Considering that's the vast majority of our deck, I don't hate that. There's things we need to draw to. An Ancient Tomb. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we could play a Thought Monitor, or we could just play the Kappa Cannoneer and try and kill our opponent. Do we want to draw more cards, or do we want to try and kill our opponent? Interesting. If we draw more cards, we might be able to play the Cannoneer as well this turn. if things go well. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So we only need to find 1 0 mana artifact and we can get the Cannoneer in as well. And we need to find a blue source actually, don't we? This is blue, right? So yeah, that works. I think Improvise lets you tap them for their colour. Oh no, it's only colourless. My bad. We needed a Mox there. Because this, we don't have any blue here. So now what are we doing? I don't think we're attacking here. I think we are. Let's see what our opponent's working with in their hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. We're kind of looking for actual mana sources though, because we want to be able to hold up our Brazen Borrower for when we get stung by this Dark Depths in a minute. Do we really see another Force of Vigor from our opponent? Yuck. I guess we have to keep our Bauble, our other Bauble, so we have enough artifacts. Now our opponent seems to have drawn triple Force of Vigor this game. Okay, another Bauble. This helps us cast a Cannoneer. I'd like to draw a blue source so we can have our Brazen Borrower, because there's only so many little guys I can throw in the way of a Marrowlage. They're going to cast a Force of Vigor right now. They are not. Let's play this Bauble. It's our blue source. And we're tapping this, this, this. Do we tap our Tomb here? I think it's okay to tap the Tomb. Yes. Maybe we're supposed to play the other guy first. But if we don't hit a blue source, we're not getting this Cannoneer. And this Cannoneer might be able to just run away with the game next turn. A red Elemental Blast. Wowzers, our opponent's drawn a lot of their sideboard cards here. I guess we're not attacking. Right, they didn't make a Marrowlage token. That's something. A Psy Master Thopterist. Unfortunately, we don't have the second blue. So how much is this? Just the 1 mana. So let's cast a Thought Monitor. Very much like to find some more blue mana sources. There's a blue mana source. So I think we want this Lotus Petal and this Urza Saga in play. I think we are holding open the Brazen Borrower this turn though. So we're going to play this Lotus Petal so we can get the Psy, so we can cast the Brazen Borrower if we need to. And then I think we're going to see if we can see another card in our opponent's hand, or we're just going to see the same Force of Vigor. A Pyroblast. Okay. Not very friendly. I think we now have enough artifacts that we can just use them as draw engines and see what's on top of our opponent's library. A Grove of the Burnt Willows. I think that is going to give them the thing that they're looking for necessarily. They could Force of Vigor away our Lotus Petal here. But if they do that, they're not making a Marrowlage this turn, which is something. Looks like we're getting a Force of Vigor. Targeting Thought Monitor and our Urza Saga. That's fine, I guess. So we get 2 more cards this turn, which is nice. We're just trying to avoid our opponent having too many good turns, really. I don't really like this Chalice of the Void, but we can play Psy next turn and try and play out a bunch of stuff. We can hold open our Borrower as well. So there's a Grove we know about. Our opponent's got Pyroblast plus 1 mystery card in their hand. I don't think we're going to draw from the Soulglow Lantern. Our opponent could cast a Life of the Loam at any point, and we need to make sure that doesn't kill us. An Urza Saga. Okay, so we're going to play out our Urza Saga here. Then we're going to cast a Psy Master Thopterist. I think we will use this rather than the Petal. Maybe that's wrong, because obviously the Petal is much easier to disrupt. We know one of the cards in their hand already. We don't actually have an exciting artifact to follow this up with. It's probably going to get the Pyroblast, sure. But our Urza Saga tokens are going to be big, and that's how we're going to win this game. We just need to make sure that we can always Brazen Borrower the Marrowlage token when that comes around. That's how we lose this game. Beseiju on our... Okay, we will float a mana just in case something goes wrong this turn. Not actually unhappy to have this island, to be perfectly honest. Having a second blue source really does help. It allows us to deploy things and also get our stuff going. We have another Urza Saga about to pop off as well. We're slightly behind on clock, so we need to be a little bit quicker on that. We're not going to play out our Emry here. We're just going to do this and then pass a turn. We want to win the game with a Saga. It won't take very long to win the game with a Saga once it comes along. We've got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 effectively. They're on the manual Dark Depths counter removal. That's fine. If they want to put 30 mana into that to let us bounce it, that'd be aces. We've already seen 2 red blasts as well. Alright, this is the turn where we start winning the game, I think. See the Synod. There's this Bauble. We're also trying to scrape a few seconds off our opponent's clock as well, here, if we can help it. Yeah, removing a nice counter from the Dark Depths, sure. And another one, sure. Be my guest. They might concede soon if they don't think they're going to beat this as a Saga token. Let's make a Saga token. crack this to leave all our blue mana up, because not having enough blue mana is how we lose the game. And we'll go get the Shadowspear here. This means we can survive a hit for 20 as well. We'll equip this onto this guy. Tapping these two. Play this out. Go attacks. This forces a chump block. We still have Brazen Borrower off of our island Lotus Petal as well. Our opponent's taking a bit of time thinking about this one. This also will enable all of our flyers to be lethal next turn as well. Feels like our opponent's probably done here. This life puts us out of a single hit of Merit Lage as well. Lightning Bolt on our Thought Monitor. Okay. So they're going to have a pretty good turn here. They've got crop rotation. No, they're just removing some counters. Okay, we scraped maybe a minute ahead of them in the clock. Sure. So, do we have any ways we want to change this? Do we want Force of Will to stop the Force of Vigors? Like, an early Force of Vigor can be very brutal against us. So maybe we're looking at Force of Vigors. Maybe they're better than Chalices. I think that's probably where I want to be. Sure, let's try that. Especially on the draw, the Chalice isn't going to do anything because they're going to play their 1-drop on the draw, and then the only thing that's going to shut off is crop rotation, which is probably reduced in number in their deck against the blue deck anyway. So I think we're probably just looking at what we've got set up here. Our opening hand doesn't go anywhere, so this is a pretty easy mulligan. What does this do? This gives us some redraws, and it has an answer to Merit Lage. I think we do keep this and we throw away the Shadowspear. We have 2 answers to Merit Lage. Not great versus Wasteland, but we do have one of our basics. Let's see how bad it is, though. Let's play out this Saga. Let's play out Bauble. We're going to leave these ones in play for the purposes of Thought Monitor next turn. Maybe we're supposed to play our island first, actually. But we have 1, 2, 3 artifacts in play. So we're not a million miles away from casting this Thought Monitor. Right? Yeah. Probably would have been better off playing the island. I don't necessarily know how much difference it's going to make, though. And a Bauble. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're in a weird situation here. I don't know if we're supposed to crack these baubles and just get redraws, or save them because they're mana for a thing we actually have in hand. But I think we're kind of looking for mana sources, so probably going to be cracking them here. Let's see what our opponent's about to draw. An expedition map. Okay. I think if we're cracking one, we're supposed to crack all of them. There's the expedition map we knew about, so we can scribble that off our list. There's a tiger. I think we are supposed to crack these baubles here. I imagine our opponent's plan is going to be somewhere along the lines of try and overload the Spellbomb with Urza Saga tokens. Right. And then try and force some Merit Lage through. I think we are just cracking these to just get some fresh looks. Okay, Emry's not going to be very good here. Mox Diamond. Okay. I didn't play it. Interesting. Let's just get a whole new grip of cards and see where we lay. Okay, a land. That's worth cracking a bauble for. Another land that's also worth cracking a bauble. A Force of Will. Pretty good. Okay, we can play out this Urza Saga. If they have a Wasteland, they have a Wasteland. If they don't, we get to start making an inroad into winning the game. So we do now have a Force of Will that we can use. I'd not like to pitch the Thought Monitor if I can help it, but I think keeping the Brazen Borrower just as another answer to problem permanents is where I want to be. Right, we're getting Wastelanded. Fair enough. This is going to be... Okay, so we're seeing the Mox Diamond here. What are they pitching? Probably the Karakas? Since they know we know about it. Sure. They might have something like a Minsk and Boo in their deck. It's like a way of winning games quickly. So we've got the Force of Will to cover that. Life from the Loam onto the Wastelands. Yuck. How do I feel about that? Our opponent has already played a land this turn. If this resolves, they get to Wasteland us next turn, but they can also just dredge it and do the same thing next turn anyway. Yuck. Okay, I think we have to let that resolve. I'm not very happy about it. So we've got 2 Wastelands and a Karakas in hand. Yuck. So, so I guess we're just playing out some basic mana sources here. We're very much under the gun. A Force of Negation, which some of the Eggcast decks play, would have been good in that spot because it will remove the Life from the Loam permanently, but we don't have that. Alright, our opponent has got 7 minutes on their clock. So we played quickly. The onus is on our opponent to actually win this game in time. Whereas we just need to not lose it. It's actually a horrible way to think about it, but sure, you can get some cards back. Pretty good mill there. There's a Thespian stage we know about. So the Merit Lage is probably coming relatively soon. Now we have an onboard answer for it. So they might try and get an Urza Saga to get a Pithing Needle for the Spellbomb. A Kappa Cannoneer. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we're not there, but I do think we play this out and force our opponent to get into the dirt with some Wastelanding. Sort of waste their time a little bit. I'm not trying to time our opponent out, but it might be the best avenue we have to win this game. So probably going to go and get themselves a Dark Depths here. Yep. And this Dark Depths is going to be able to make a 2020 in the very near future. Now, they don't have an exploration right now, which is good for us. Okay, they milled over the cards. So they have a Sphere of Resistance. Interesting. Makes all our one drops a bit more annoying. It's more of an old school card, the old Sphere of Resistance. Okay, our opponent's going to clean up. How good is their riches? So they might discard the Life from the Loam just so they can keep dredging it whenever they want. Or they might just discard one of the excess lands they can pick up whenever. They've got a lot of options. A wasteland, sure. So what have we got? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Force of Vigor. I guess we are drawing a card with our Aether Spellbomb here. An Emry, sure. Alright, sideboard cards are good. They pitched their Life from the Loam though. Hopefully that's our only one. So we have another Brazen Borrower, which I don't mind. Again, we could have Force of Willed that, but I think we have to Force of Will the Pyroblast that's coming. That's where my brain is at right now. Should have said that when the Force of Vigor was on the stack. Sure. So they're going to lose 2 lands here. If they don't have another Life from the Loam, then this actually puts us in an okay spot here. Petty Theft on this. We're casting it now so that our opponent doesn't have multiple Pyroblasts to... Alright. We got through the first wave. Do they have another Life from the Loam? They did just exile one. The Force of Vigor. They don't have that many green cards. There's a Wasteland. Goodbye, Seat of the Synod. I think you have to take out the seat here, right? Yeah, we have a threat in waiting right now. We can also use Brazen Borrower to block a Merit Lage if it comes to it, if we end up with the mana to cast one. What would I like here? A Thoughtcast. Not the one. Okay, we're sort of in self-preservation mode here now. Now, our opponent's got lots of lands to deploy, so this Urza Saga is going to be a pretty reasonable threat. A Sire Master Thopterist that we cannot cast. Understood, deck. Looking for a spell I can cast. That would be nice. Or a land. We have crop rotation covered with the Force of Will at least, but we can't deal with the Urza Sagas and what comes out of them. A Mox Opal. How does that change things? This makes our Emry castable, which gives us recurring Aether Spellbombs. I imagine our opponent's going to Urza Saga, Pithing Needle, and name Emry though. So that's going to be a bit sad for us. But at least they're not getting Shadowspear, which is the thing that's going to be harder for us to beat. Because again, our opponent's clock is... Ooh. Do I want to keep our Emry alive? Interesting choice here. I think if we counterspell this... I think the rest of our opponent's hand is lands if I've been paying attention. I think we counterspell this with our really expensive card. We got a Pyroblast here. They do have a Red Blast. Okay, so that's not great for us. Now, they definitely have enough time to kill us. We're going to need to find some more action here, but our deck is doing the thing that 8-cast deck sometimes does, where it just kind of flops around and doesn't really get anywhere. Alright, so they're going to have some construct tokens, and they're going to have another land so they can make more construct tokens. So we need to find a Seat of the Synod. Gives us 1, 2, 3. That doesn't give us enough to keep going, does it? But it's a step in the right direction. We need to get our Sai up and running. Now, if they go get a Shadowspear here, that's pretty bad news for us. We've got a lot of triggers to put on there, but 3 minutes should be enough time to kill us with these guys. Are they crop rotating away there as a Saga? Sure, we don't have any interaction. Maybe the Chalice is better than the Force of Will? I don't know. It's tricky to say. What are they going to get here? Is it the Shadowspear? It is the Shadowspear. Understood, opponents. So we're going to be forced to bounce this to buy ourselves some turns. At least our opponent's navigating this relatively slowly. Probably just making another construct here, yeah. Okay. And they crash for 5. Next turn they put the Shadowspear on it. It's going to be a tough one. So we don't get to cast any spells here, apart from Brazen Borrower, which does buy us another turn. So we wait for them to equip and attack, I think. But I suspect our opponent wins this game. They've got a lot of triggers to click through, but 2 minutes is quite a long time to attack twice. So they're tutoring off of there as a Saga now, getting a Mox Diamond. This is just another artifact to pump their constructs. Discard themselves a Saga. And equipping the Shadowspear here. So we survived just about by bouncing one of these guys, right? Because these attack us for 6 instead of 7. They probably have another Pyroblast in hand because it's been one of those games. But we'll do all we can do. Just delay our opponent for a minute somehow. Very difficult when we can't put anything on the stack because our hand doesn't do anything. We need to beat 3 construct tokens and a Shadowspear. We can't cast any of our spells, so that's not great. Trying to make our opponent think of some stuff here. But I'm pretty sure our opponent can work out to just click the attack with all button. They're paying cost. Why are they doing anything other than just attacking here? They don't need to. Okay, they got punishing fires. Sure, we are dead. Pretty long one there. I feel that last one we were a little bit unlucky. Like, our opponent's draw was very good and our draw was very poor, which is sometimes the way 8-cast goes. This is kind of one of the reasons I don't like 8-cast that much. We have a lot of do-nothings in our deck. A lot of air where we're sort of trying to draw to stuff, and if it doesn't work out for us, then we feel like we're getting nowhere. You can end up with a handful of like Thought Monitors and Kappa Cannoneers without the resources to cast them, which I don't like it. The other round we lost was against Cephalid Breakfast, where they had the literal nuts of turn 2 combo with double piece of protection for our double piece of interaction. So there's no shame in losing to that one. So we ended up with a 3-2. Let's chat about the deck. So I think the deck's fine. What I will say is, in my experience when I played the monoblue painter deck, because it kind of eschews the Psi for the combo pieces you need for that deck, it ends up being slightly lower curve, which means that you play a load of artifacts early on that power out your later stuff a bit better. Obviously, Psi is very good for powering out stuff, but my problem that I found whenever I've played Psi is that you sometimes have to use these things to get it into play, and then you don't necessarily make that many things. It's weird. It's kind of like a win more card in a lot of situations to me, because if you're drawing loads of cards and making loads of stuff, sure, it's great, but if you haven't really got a lot to work with, it doesn't do an awful lot. Yes, you can sack some artifacts to draw cards, but generally I've not been very impressed with Psi. Now, I know there are lots of matchups where it's great. Things like Delver really struggles against just an endless parade of 1/1s to chuck in front of their guys. I get that. I understand why. Delver obviously not so great right now though. And it is also pyroblastable, red blastable, which makes it a little bit vulnerable too. I do think for the way I like to play Magic at least, I think the Painter build is better than regular 8-cast. Now, the problem with Painter is that there are a lot of decks that are running things just for Painter now, whether it's a single Emrakul or Gaia's Blessing or whatever. People are running these things now to deal with Painter decks because Painter decks are quite popular. However, this deck produces so many artifacts like the Painter version that your Urza Saga is still a very realistic win condition. And if we look at this deck, the only real difference in win conditions here between this and the Painter deck is we have Psi to go wide and we have Kappa Cannoneer. Now, you can sometimes have Kappa Cannoneer in the Painter deck as well. Sometimes it's in the sideboard, but you have that option for the matchups where you need it anyway. So I'm not entirely convinced that you want to be on regular 8-cast when you could be on Painter, which also just has I win buttons, which are really nice. But again, this deck felt fine. Like, we did lose, I'd say the fifth game we lost to our own deck, which sometimes happens. And, you know, this deck does have a fail rate. We are running off a lot of non-basics, and we're very dependent on one type of card, artifacts. So we do have some very easily exploitable vulnerabilities. But yeah, this deck is fine. I think it's the second most played deck in the format right now, which I think is probably over-egging it a little bit. It's very easy to beat this deck if you want to beat this deck, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. I think having decks that are vulnerable to certain things is good, because it means the meta can sort of shift and adapt, and you have to pick your spot when it's right to play this and run into a tournament. Sideboard-wise, we saw the Macabre were pretty good against the old Cephalid Breakfast. They ended up not actually making a huge difference in one of the games, but that was one where we sort of got massively blown out. But if we'd have had them, it would have been great. So I think this sideboard seems fine to me. I don't really have any issues. I would say maybe the Force of Negation is something you might want to look at over 1 or 2 Hydroblasts, because it's just so good against things from Life from the Loam. And under a Wasteland Loch, this deck really struggles to function, as you saw in the last round. Like, I did say it was our fail rate that hit, but also our opponent did interact with us a lot in one of the games and double Wastelanded us. But in the other game, it was just a case of we didn't really get anything up and running. We had all these expensive cards and no way of casting them. Maybe that's some of my sideboarding, and we should be trimming the higher end stuff a little bit more. But I do think Kappa Cannoneer is very good, because it means they can't just answer it with Maze of Ith or the Force of Vigors very easily. So it does cause them. So maybe it's the Thought Monitors that's supposed to go there. somebody who's better at this deck will probably tell you. And hopefully they'll tell you in the comments so you can go down and read them and learn a bit more. Alright, I think we're done for today. So like, comment, subscribe, join my Discord, maybe become a member of the channel. Why not? These are things you can do. Why not? Alright, I'm tired. It's time to go to bed. That last round was a very long one. Alright, thank you very much for watching and goodbye.